Andrew O'Neill, I'm very embarrassed because you had to buy the drinks.
Yeah, I had to buy the drinks because they don't take cards here, and I do in cash because I'm a mercenary.
You're so old school.
I am old school. I'm fully old school. Yeah.
You are on it.
So I had to stump up
thank you very much.
And slightly baffle the locals. I think it strikes me as the sort of pub that will be talking about me for the next 10 years. This woman with a very deep voice is ordered the drink. Hello.
Do you sort of notice that people look at you funny, or
Yeah.
are you immune to it now?
No, I'm not immune to it. Yeah, I did a month of cross-dressing every day because I don't do it every day. I do it when I feel like it, or when the show demands it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I did a month of it, and yeah, that level of perception starts to drop off. But I don't know. I got. During that month, I got a full-on authentic triple take. This guy, I was doing my makeup in a mirror in the gents in a venue, and this bloke who I could see in the mirror, and he was in the urinal opposite me, and he spun round to look at me, then he went all the way right back round, and then like a metronome, he did another third take, and then did this. There's a grumbling. There's a very distinct grumbling that happens. It's kind of, and then I heard someone go, "No, he's doing the show," and he went, "Oh, that's all right then." So if it wasn't, it'd have been some trouble.
But suddenly it's fine.
Yeah.
Was that in Edinburgh?
No, that was in where was that? That was somewhere in Yorkshire. It was in a little village, and it was, it's part of the course. People are rarely dicks about it.
Okay.
They usually don't want to be rude, and they usually they just don't know how to handle it. That's the thing. People trip over pronouns. They go, "There you go." And then they'll say mate or sir or madam or love. They just kind of go, "There you go." So there's genuinely, I was in a bar in Melbourne a couple of years ago, and went up to a bloke working there. "Excuse me, where's the toilet?" And he went, he proper panicked. He went, "Gents is that way, ladies are that way." It's wicked. So just being incredibly diplomatic. But that's what tends to happen. And then you get groups of blokes with blokes who, because of socialisation, need to prove that they're not gay by shouting at me.
Okay.
Which, if anything, starts to raise questions. Yeah, but on the whole, it's fairly polite.
Do you always dress up for the show, or is it kind of again when you feel like it?
This current show's got a big chunk on cross-dressing, so I need to do it for that. Because otherwise they sit there and stare at me, thinking, "Well, this is no, but you're what?"
You need to prove yourself.
Yeah, but and also to clamp down on the weird sort of Rocky Horror fishnet based, because if someone says because the word is so, it's got so much kind of bullshit cultural meaning attached to it, and the image of a tranny is a kind of sad middle-aged bloke kind of essentially wanking into his wife's knickers, crying, whereas I'm a bit more, "Hello, I've got a dress," and it's so it helps a lot with that. But for the rest of the time, yeah, it's pretty much dependent on mood, what I'm doing, whether I can be bothered to put up with the attendant oddness. But that's what that month was about. The month was about expanding my comfort zone. So, going to the shop, I would shave and I'd put on a bit of makeup and I would put on a skirt, and then and it's just kind of, and it just became exactly like putting on any other clothing. By the end of that month, it didn't feel like a thing at all.
Were you? Did you want to take it longer than the month after that, or was it kind of enough?
It was enough. I mean, there's just logistical stuff like having to shave every day, which is a pain, quite literally a pain. And yeah, I think I've broken down, because I've tried for a long time to kind of break down the gender binary, so I don't see clothes as I being male or female. I just see them as being like on a spectrum of masculinity or femininity, and there's a big grey area in the middle. All the boys' clothes I wear are girls' clothes anyway. Yeah. The jeans I wore on the way here are women's jeans. This is all women's stuff, but it's the androgynous end of it. So So I'm trying still to kind of break that down. But socialisation is an incredibly powerful thing, and it's amazing how, you just look at any given audience, apart from some of my audiences now, but, there'll be some, I attract a very alternative audience, like kind of, punks and metalheads and goths and then, they will all have dressed gender appropriate without even thinking about it. At no point have you in the last week gone, today I'm not going to wear a skirt. It's so inbuilt, and it's so, you swallow it to such a degree that people don't even think about it, and that's why when you do jump out of it, people think you're from Mars.
Yeah,
because they're just. But what? And then if you just go, right, tell me why it's a weird thing, and they kids' reactions are interesting as well, because they take it. They've never. You don't double think things when you're a kid. But they just, why are you? And they will just go, why are you dressed like a girl? And it's like, well, let's unpick this. So yeah.
The whole sort of. I mean, have you looked at the kind of? Because I do psychology, have you looked at the social constructionist thing around kind of gender and Judith Butler?
I've read Judith Butler, yeah. And I find it fascinating. When every, from a sort of anthropological point of view, every culture distinguishes what men and women wear. Every species distinguishes between male and female, every species that has male and female, from a purely kind of practical biological point of view. But there are loads of communities that have a third gender, and there are plenty that have a kind of looseness. And I genuinely think that, provided we don't get nuked by North Korea, we're moving gradually towards a position where there's just. I don't think there'll be drastic change, and there'll always be dickheads, but I think there's a huge amount more freedom. I mean, just since I've been out, I get a lot less hassle now. I mean, I do it better as well. I look a lot less crap, to be fair. I think some of those criticisms were entirely entirely fair enough. Mate, you look shit. Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, but there's a real loosening up. I mean, if you look at the way homosexuality is now treated in the mainstream media. If you look at something as awful as The Only Way is Essex, that's got gay characters, I don't know how characters, but gay characters in, and they're like woven into the social fabric. There's that kind of gay best friend thing, and they're like obviously they're on telly, so they're a bit outrageous, but it's that kind of gay best friend thing is now part of kind of 21st century life, to the degree that I can riff on it, because it's such an established sort of trope. So I think there's a full-on kind of loosening up.
Is there a risk, though, that because it is becoming more acceptable, that people say that it isn't an issue anymore, and that we can forget about it because it's not
like with people who reckon we live in a post-feminist world.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And what's quite interesting as well is that the gay issues are becoming more and more, less radical. There's a really good argument against gay marriage. I'm entirely for equal marriage. I actually was involved in the Equal Love campaign. Me and my wife tried to get a civil partnership. It was great, and they just went, you're can I? And then they did this wonderful thing where, and I wasn't blurring any gender lines on that day. They went, I just need to check you are male and you are female. It was really cool. But there's a really good argument against it, which is, why the fuck do you want to get married? For years, gay activists were constructing something outside of mainstream society, and that's really valuable from a kind of from an activist sort of anarchist point of view. They're going, sod this kind of this conformity, this mortgage kids domesticity thing, and now that it's become much more accepted. I find that sort of thing really, really odd. But then the same can be said of alternative culture and this whole. By the way, interviewing me, you're never going to get to the end of any of these because I'm over there with this hate crime thing with subcultures. So Greater Manchester Police are now investigating violent crimes against metalheads, goths, emos, punks, and associated subcultures, as hate crimes. And I just think that's a bit like going, we entirely reject society, but can you protect us? It's basically screw you and screw your society. And when people go, well, you're different from us, we'll go, no, we're not. Well, no, we are. And that's the whole point, So anyway. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered any any of those points.
I don't know if there was a question even.
No, there is. I just basically there's a button that you press and I say words. It's quite cool.
Well, I mean, because if I get this straight, you're a vegan,
Yes.
occultist,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Well, I just say that because I haven't done it much recently.
okay, transvestite,
Yes.
metalhead.
Yes. These are all correct
Have I
so
missed
far.
any?
Human,
Human, and probably comedian.
Londoner, comedian.
But does comedian come at the end of the list? I don't know. Is it something you're as proud of or as important part of your identity?
I think comedian is probably the most fundamental of all of them. I think my entire I suppose my sort of notion of self is kind of far more bound up in me being a comic than it is in me being any of those other things.
Not even music, or
Well, metal. Yeah, the metal thing is a big one, and that's affected my politics, and that's certainly affected how I go about doing comedy. But I don't know. I think I could if I people, because I'm in a band as well, and I'm in a punk band, and people always say, "Oh, but if you could, if you had to choose one, I want to do comedy." Comedy is a direct expression of myself. My band is a laugh and a it's wicked, and I'm having we're having enormous fun doing it. But doing my mood on any given day is entirely related to how well my last gig went. That's just and probably most comics will tell you that. But my last few gigs have been really nice, and I'm bouncing around. And if I have a real stinker, then I tend to, I'm not prone to depression. I'm not bipolar or anything, but I do kind of.
But is there a risk of you asserting too much worth onto that, which perhaps isn't? Yeah.
Yes, there is. Yes.
And there's things that aren't under your control. They might just.
But that's all factored in.
Okay.
That's all.
Right.
If the audience are clearly a bunch of pricks, then I'm not going to beat myself up over it. But if I feel like I've been crap, then that's and particularly if you. It always seems to be that you have a crap gig and then no gigs for a few days, and you just have to carry the burden of the crap gig until you can unleash it onto you can let it kind of fly free after the good one.
And it's always the last one, is it? Or if you've had a bad
no,
one,
it's always the last one. If you have the worst gig in your life, and then the next day you have an average gig, you'd be fine. You're just it's fine. Because we all have imposter syndrome. Well, most of us do. There's a couple of comedians with a sense of entitlement that I think precludes imposter syndrome. But we all have this notion that we're getting away with it. So when you have a bad gig, that feels like it's confirming the notion that you're just getting away. Every good gig you've ever had has been a fluke, but then you have a good one and go, oh yeah, no, it's fine.
Did I hear you're taking Edinburgh off this year? You're not going?
Yeah.
Is it a kind of freedom from it? You feel like you don't need to do it anymore?
I've done 10 in a row, and I feel like I've filled out one of those coffee shop loyalty cards with stamps. And I get one free. Well, yeah, I've done 7 solo shows in a row, and all I wanted to do really was step off the treadmill of developing a new hour show just for this year. I already know what my next show is going to be about, but it means that I can use this time. I mean, I'd normally be in Australia now doing the Melbourne. Last 3 years I've done the Melbourne Comedy Festival. That's happening now, but I just wanted to step off that treadmill for a year, and in doing so, in deciding not to do one thing, which is fairly all-encompassing, I've literally got 12 other projects on there. Literally, my brain went, all those other things you quite fancy doing, go! So I'm, there's two TV comedy ideas I'm developing. I've got several documentary things I'm developing. I've just done a steampunk zine. I'm working with No Sweat, the anti-sweatshop campaign. And there's all these other things that normally would have to take a back seat to me just writing and trying out new material. And also, actually, it's given me a lot more freedom with the sort of material I'm writing. So I've got about a new 20 minutes already, and that's without really sitting down and applying myself to it with a kind of deadline in mind. But it means that it doesn't have to have a theme, and it doesn't have to be coherent, and that's kind of how I write anyway. It's like planets forming out of dust. There'd be a stupid line, and then another thing will form next to it, and there'll be another thing and another thing, and then all of a sudden you've got a planet and you've got a show.
But kind of the non-theme is the theme quite often for you, maybe.
Well, there is usually a thread that runs through it, and actually this current show, Easily Distracted, is the most coherent. It's the one with, I suppose, the most followable kind of narrative to it. But I just really like jokes, and I really like the building blocks of a set. I really like. I'm increasingly becoming a one-liner comic. Admittedly, a lot of those one-liners are sung. You like that. But I really like that kind of bite-sized thing, and then building a rhythm out of doing loads of little jokes, and that's probably, I reckon the next straight stand-up show I'll do will be, like, I suppose, almost Tim Vine-ish, in just this kind of rhythm of building up, and and probably abandoning slightly the more discursive, more kind of political or sort of social commentary stuff. Because partly I feel like I've done transvestism to death in my show. The next Edinburgh show I'm going to write is going to be a history of heavy metal, so that's going to be completely off on that. But I've got an increasingly odd set that's building.
But those longer, more discursive pieces where you can kind of work at an idea for longer. Do you think you miss that, just keeping it to the short?
What I don't miss is having to do that, and an hour show pretty much a solo show needs stuff, like, it needs hooks, you need a bit of a rest from relentless jokes. Harry Hill, I think, is the funniest comedian I've ever seen, like, just pound for pound. And after about 10 minutes of watching Harry Hill, I stopped laughing, because I'm laughing my head off, like, relentlessly, and then I kind of just sit there enjoying it. And then so when you're writing a show, you have to kind of surf that, and you have to kind of go, you've got your opening, and then you sort of, you shift down a gear, and then you lean back into it. But I do like the idea of building something completely relentless.
Okay. Yeah.
Like a thrash album. It's like the difference between kind of like prog and just like grindcore. Yeah, grindcore. That's the.
Is there a temptation to do anything completely different, or do you kind of feel like you're on the right path now?
I've got a lot of different outlets, so not in terms of comedy. Through the years, I've tried lots of different styles. I mean, the thing is, I'd mix up styles anyway. I've got politics. I've got song. I've got, basically, when I started doing stand-up, I was such a massive fan of comedy. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So I loved Bill Hicks, and I loved Harry Hill, and I loved Monty Python, and I loved Eddie Izzard, and I loved Billy Connolly, and I love Harry Enfield and sketch comedy. So I just I still approach comedy from the point of view of these little bites, like, what's funny, what is funny, and asking someone in the front of the audience how a cat, like, really earnestly, how cats work for me, and then they just, not what do they do, how do they work? That to me is really funny, but that doesn't need to lead anywhere. Yeah. And it's funnier, it's purer when it doesn't lead anywhere. So, like, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is funnier than The Life of Brian, because The Life of Brian is a better film, but it's got a beginning, middle and end, it's got a narrative running through it, and it's a satire. Whereas Holy Grail is just the funniest ideas they could come up with that could loosely be attributed to a medieval setting, and it's much funnier. That, like, certainly in terms of my sort of club set and in terms of my stand-up, that's I literally just want to get as funny as I can. Like, literally as kind of, like, ball-bustingly funny as I can. That full-on, and it feels like after 11 years of stand-up, I'm just about starting to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, you were saying about those comedians that influence you, and I remember you saying before how you kind of took a bit from everything. Do you kind of still feel like that's the case, but maybe more hidden?
Possibly, and probably, but...
You're doing your own thing now.
It does feel... My jokes feel more like Andrew O'Neill jokes than they do, Eddie Izzard in the style of Harry Hill or whatever, But you can still pretty much categorise my jokes by genre and kind of go like, I've not watched any Izzard. I don't watch any Izzard anymore because when I do, I just start talking like him. And like, but my stuff's gone slightly back towards, because he was the reason I do stand-up. And yeah, no, I think you can still see it. You can still see the lineage from, you know, like that bit's quite Bill Bailey in that, but hopefully I've covered up the seams a little bit better, you know. Hopefully it's a little bit less like, you know, a mixtape, and you know, and a little bit more like a band writing their own songs, I guess. Yeah.
And you can't, so it's been definitely influenced by something, but it's not as if you're
my influences now are largely outside of comedy, because I'm completely fucking sick of comedy, and like I love doing it, but I'm, you know, I can't watch open spot comedy anymore, because it's just that, I don't know. And it must be like being a virtuoso musician watching a covers band, just going you know, or having perfect pitch and hearing someone singing who's not, you know, who's all right, but, you know, it's got I just go, yeah, I'll see that, how that works, yeah, I'll see how that works, yep. You know, the people that make me laugh are the ones where I just go, why are you saying this? Like Brian Gittins is just, you know, he's made me laugh more than anyone recently, because he's got that thing of just finding, it's not jokes, it's just he's just funny. He's just like, you know, he's found a thing that's really, really funny. There's something quite pure about that. But yeah, I can't remember the question now. Wow, this is good beer.
There was one. Thank you so much. We've got to leave it there.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah,
it's been lovely.
You're sort of beautifully lit now by the setting sun.
Kind of lightened up. Yeah.
Yeah, rocking. Well, thank you. Thank you,
all
three cameras. It's amazing. They're all the same, by the way. They're all the same camera. It looks really good. If I could hold up a mirror, it'd be quite good. Remember in the broom cupboard? You're probably not old enough for the broom cupboard, are you? Wow. Well, we'll leave that.
They are different. They are different types of.
Are they different
tripod,
types? Different, yeah, that's true. Different tripods.
But then that's enough of a homemade feel, I think.
I think you should spin round and show the locals. You know, I think they should. You know, the crew,
give them their glory.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there's some behind you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.